We are live. Today is Thursday, June 11th. This is our fortnightly community outreach meeting. Before we get into the agenda, I'd like to go around the room and have everybody introduce themselves. So Rashi, you're in my top left corner, so would you like to go left?
Okay, sure. I'm new to Backdrop, and I'm working on some sites. And since I'm going through a new installation, I'm writing a sort of high-level introduction to Backdrop, sort of ultimate guide, beginner's guide to Backdrop. And I haven't put that anywhere yet, but it's being written. I've got 2 long pages on it. And I was working with Tim for a little while, and maybe occasionally I'll check in with Tim again to see where I can go with it.
Nate, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Nate Lampton. I live in Oakland, California, and I'm a core committer. And I'm mostly joined because I heard that possibly Software Freedom Conservancy might be here today, but anyway, I just wanted to see and say hello to everybody. So that's it.
Gregory?
Yep. Hi, I'm Greg. I'm joining from Greece, usually in Melbourne, Australia, but now in Greece. I don't have as much time to contribute lately as I used to, so I'm using this meeting as a sort of like a means to catch up with the rest of the gang and see what's going on. Hope, however, I can.
Hi, I'm Luke. I'm a product management consultant and sometimes web developer in San Ramon, California. I am part of a initiative that I think we're going to be talking about a little bit later, and you know, part of my role as one of the original Backdrop cheerleaders, and I booked a trip to Greece for next year, so I'm having Greek food for lunch here.
All right, Joseph?
From Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm a backend developer. I'm just here to see how I can help.
Great. I am Jen Lampton. I am in Oakland, California. I don't have anything exciting to share today, except for I have a dog joining in the meeting, but she seems to be sleeping at the moment. Okay, let's see. From last time, we had 2 blog posts we wanted to write, both of which got written. Amazing. Thank you, Luke, very much. I know there was some issues with the scheduling where we were originally going to schedule your post to go out like the next Friday, Luke, and then all of a sudden we got the 116 post. We're like, oh, that'll go tomorrow, and then yours will go next week, and then the 116 post ended up getting delayed a week, so they both ended up going out the same week anyway. So next time, if I try and do that, please let's tell Jen to stay on schedule because it'll work out much better that way. But I'm really happy to see that both blog posts got out. This morning I went ahead and scheduled a bunch of tweets that should promote them both over the coming week. So very excited about that. Thank you guys for getting those done. Social media, I just talked about. I have not logged into Facebook in a very long time. I feel like we have a lot more followers on Facebook than we do on Twitter. So I don't know if anyone else is on Facebook often and would be interested in scheduling stuff for Backdrop. I can do the same ones I just did on Twitter today. I'll do similar ones on Facebook later today, but I always forget about Facebook. So if we have anyone else that wants to manage that, that's a good job, I think.
I'm an enthusiastic, constant user of Facebook, so
Yay.
I'm happy to do whatever you want me to on it.
Okay, I will.
Whereas I'm antisocial, I don't have Twitter or Facebook.
Luke, I'm going to add you as an admin for the Backdrop account, and just anytime you see anyone say anything about Backdrop, like it and forward it or share it or whatever Facebook lets you do. And then
sure.
If I schedule anything to go on Twitter, I can send you the copy and you can put it on Facebook if you want. So I have like a text file. I'll just send it over.
Great.
Yeah, and if there's a mention that we add in the mentions section, I'll make sure to let you know so that you can, I don't know, tweet or Facebook about it.
Great. All right, next up, newsletter. So we're doing well on social media and blog posts finally, which is great. But we need to send a newsletter announcing 116. And we've had a lot of trouble lately figuring out how to send a newsletter. Today, I spent some time trying to untangle our mess with MailJet. And Nate, I logged into the info at Backdrop CMS account, and there's a landing page saying, "We're sorry to see you go. Your account has been canceled." I don't know if you canceled that account or not. Maybe they canceled it on us. Anyway, we don't have access to that account. That was the account that for a little while was sending email from the Backdrop server. It is not doing that anymore. So it isn't really that important. And it could have been that like maybe we didn't use it for 30 days and it automatically canceled. I don't know how that works. But we don't have access to any of the data that was there because the account is gone. So that's something to note. I also logged into my personal account, and I have a bunch of email addresses in there that are on a list called Backdrop CMS. And there's not that many. It's not like our entire list. There's 44 of them, which seems like maybe when we lost access to the Backdrop MailJet account, the first one that was set up, I switched the form on the website so that it would post to an account we had access to. So my guess is that these 44 people are the people who have signed up for the mailing list on our website since we lost access to the first account. So we have all of the new people, which is good. I also have a spreadsheet export of all of the people from our MailChimp account. So we have like 2,000 people or something that we can import to a fresh account. What we would have lost if we just call our MailChimp fiasco a wash would be anyone who signed up between when we switched from MailChimp to MailJet, which I think was in November, till we noticed that we didn't have access to our MailJet account, which was January. So it would be 2 months of signups, which is unfortunate, but I still think it's not that bad considering we have everyone from before and we have everyone from after. So I'm happy to do that. I did spend some time again today trying to log into that account we can't log into. I did not receive a password reset email. I have never received an email from their support team. It just can't get to the Backdrop CMS email address. So I don't know if there's any way we can ever get access to that again. So I feel like at this point it's probably best to sort of move on and choose a service we can use to send mail. So that brings us to the next option here is Mautic, which we discussed a little bit at the beginning of the meeting. This is an open source, what's it called? Marketing, I forget what it's called.
Marketing automation.
Marketing automation tool. I don't know that we're going to be automating our marketing, but anyway, it's a tool that is specifically intended for managing mailing lists and sending emails, which is exactly what we want to do here. Long term, we want to set up a CRM system, a contact management system or contact relationship, I don't know, something that'll help us not just send emails to these people, but be able to figure out like which of these people are the ones that gave us donations and which ones of these people are the ones that volunteer. So that when we have a specific need, whether it's donationers or volunteers or whatever, we know which group to contact. It would also be great if we could tie these people to their registration at Backdrop events. So anyone who's attended one of these Backdrop days at a camp or conference, we could indicate that there. Something a little bit more like the Drupal.org CRM system, which also uses Civi, where you can like mark on your profile what you've done, and it all integrates nicely.
From what I've seen so far, I think Mautic can do all those things.
Yeah, so can Civi CRM though, and that's our end goal, is to get there. So what we need to do right now is figure out what can help us send emails between now and when we're on Civi. Because when we're on Civi, it'll do all of the email sending too, so we won't need anything else.
What is the one you're going to, Civic?
Civi CRM, yeah, that has Backdrop. It has Backdrop integration, and they've been a huge supporter of Backdrop since the beginning of Backdrop. They had Backdrop support before they had Drupal 8 support. We've worked very closely with one of the Civi core committers who's here in the Bay Area. We've done sprints together. It's been around for a really long time. It was a Drupal module before it was a standalone piece of software. It also works on WordPress. It's really popular in our target audience, which is nonprofit technology groups, because it's free and open source, but also very good at targeting those specific organizations and meeting their needs in terms of getting
How do you spell that?
CIVICRM. I think it started as with the Howard Dean campaign as the first like mobile like, I don't know what's that called, way to reach people online. Whereas back then, most of like political stuff was done through actual mail and face-to-face contact. And this was like one of the first movements to move everything online, which is pretty exciting. But it's come a really long way since then. And, you know, we have lots of CRM systems and yeah. So anyway, I'm very excited about moving to City CRM. Jack at Palante Technology Cooperative has volunteered some of resources from their team to put into setting that up for Backdrop, but I know they've been really busy, especially with all of the stuff that's going on right now. And I don't think that's going to happen in the next month or so, but I can ask them again and see what we're going on, where we're going on with that.
So that's a free solution also.
Yeah. And I don't think they have a paid option. I don't think there's an upsell. I think it's all, well, I don't know about that. Maybe they do. Posted City.
Mm-hmm.
I think they might just have partners.
Yeah, I see. I'm on their website.
And so what I was looking at this morning is checking out Sendgrid, which is a giant commercial system, but I've had a lot of success using them to deliver emails with SMTP, like using it with SMTP module, getting your website to send through Sendgrid. Most of the sites that I have on Pantheon use Sendgrid to send mail, and their deliverability is really good. When I first started using them, they didn't have a email sending tool. Like they didn't have templates, they didn't have the ability to market messages to specific groups. So I logged in today to check it out, and they've added all of this. They probably added it a while ago, but I haven't looked a long time. And it looks, haven't gotten into the like design of anything yet, but it looks like it will be relatively easy to manage. So my instinct was, oh, and it's free for like 100,000 emails a month. We usually only send one newsletter a month, and it's less than 5,000 people. So that seems like we would have no problem remaining in the free version for a while. And part of my reason for leaning towards Sendgrid is because we've had so many problems with MailChimP's deliverability, and maybe not to our contacts, but to us. And so my first instinct is like, let's just choose someplace that we know is going to get the email to the people who need the email. Yeah, the only question would be, so Sendgrid is recently bought by like Twilio or something. Might have very different philosophy and objectives than some of the other options that are out there. So like City CRM is great because it aligns with us in terms of our philosophy. I think Mautic might also align better with our philosophy than Sendgrid. And I will evaluate Mautic. I hadn't heard about it until just before this call, but I'll log in and look at its email sending features too after this meeting and see if it's substantially better than Sendgrid. Sendgrid is very complicated, so from a user interface perspective, it wouldn't surprise me if it was substantially better. But yeah, that's good to know about and look at that. So let me just throw this out there. If anybody knows of any other email sending tools similar to MailChimp or MailJet or Sendgrid or Mautic or Constant Contact or any of these services that you think would align very well with Backdrop's philosophy and objectives, let us know, because we are in the market for an email sending tool. Just very short term, we need to send one message to a few thousand people. And then longer term, it would be nice if we could separate our groups, but we'll go.
I thought HubSpot is a player in this world.
Okay, HubSpot. I'll write that down too. Okay. All right. So that's newsletter trauma. The good news is that because we have this fantastic blog post about Backdrop 1.6, we have content for the newsletter. So we just need to figure out how to send it and we can get it out pretty quickly. So that's exciting. All right, so for outreach, there's a section of this meeting where we try and talk about things that are relevant to Backdrop right now, like what's going on in the world right now, what kind of things should we be telling everyone about. Obviously, Backdrop 1.6 came out recently. That was pretty exciting. I don't know if there's anything else that we could be doing that's, I don't know. I know when the COVID-19 crisis first started, there were a whole bunch of people who were using Backdrop to set up sites really quickly for people who needed help. I don't know if we have content on any of those stories, but that might be really nice to share if we have a sort of uplifting story about how Backdrop helped someone. So kind of stuff like that is stuff that I would be interested in, timely stuff that I think would be valuable and interested in kind of helping make people feel a little better.
Someone did mention like maybe a month ago, it was a few weeks ago, that they helped a business like literally within an evening to set up an online thing. I think it was a restaurant that then went delivery or something, but I can't remember which community member was the person.
Might have been Matthias.
Yeah, it could have been.
Yeah, so I would love to share stories like that. And even if it's just like a tweet to be like, hey, congratulations on so-and-so. But if we could get more content, if that person wanted to write a blog post, that would also be fantastic.
HubSpot is $480 a year for the starter package.
Okay.
So it's not free.
There is a free version. It's like a downloadable open source thing as well. So it has the same kind of upsell model as a lot of the things do. I mean, CiviCRM also has that. They've got a thing called CiviCRM Spark. That's the same kind of, hosted open source dichotomy.
Oh, it doesn't show the free version on their site.
Let's see. So right now, a lot of people are also thinking about what they're going to do with their Drupal 7 websites. And so I also thought timely information that we could share with people is information on upgrading. I personally am doing a very small number of upgrades right now, but I do think that that could be a great opportunity to make a quick video of part of that upgrade process if there's something that you think goes particularly well, and just kind of get it out there and be like, hey, look, I just upgraded my site. Look, this is, this is what it looked like to run the update script, and ta-da, my website's done. Stuff like that would be really good. Also, maybe something that might highlight like differences, maybe improvements, how configuration management works, just something that people who are on Drupal 7 might benefit from using Backdrop that they don't know is in there. That could be really cool too. So if anyone has anything specifically related to upgrading or things that they really love about Backdrop that you don't get from Drupal 7, I think now's a good time to highlight those. And then it's we've got some options here about like documentation. If we have, I don't know what that was from last time, but I think it was something about if we have documentation on upgrading, it might be good to promote that, just because people are doing their research. And then I have a note here, improvements to make it easier. I would love it if we continued to improve the upgrade path. I know it's a lot easier than moving anything else, but it's still not as easy as I want it to be. And so I want to try and look at how we can address pain points in upgrades and make those better. I think Coder module might be involved in that a lot for any of the code changes, but I think there might be other resources that we can make for people that would help that go easier too.
I had a thought the other day. I haven't fleshed it out completely, and I don't know how much we deviated, or if it's far too in the future now, or D7 is in the past. So I was thinking that the main pain point with us is that people need to get used to the whole layouts and the way that things work in Backdrop. And when I was thinking it from an end user perspective, I thought that, yeah, if a customer, if a person, a site owner chooses to go to D8 or D9, they will have to do the whole rewrite of things like get the themes, rewrite them in Twig and so on. But it's kind of the same for that bit with us. So I'm not sure how easy it would be to sort of like allow the 7 themes to just work with Backdrop. Like if we could decouple that thing so that we provide some backwards compatible layer so that people can start, they can upgrade the database, they can start using whatever new features we have introduced in the backend, but then we give them enough time to convert their themes from the legacy D7 to whatever we have now. And I don't know how much a task that is, but it would be.
Like we rewrote the whole like page render pipeline to account
Yeah.
for layouts. So I don't think there's a way we could like turn off layout module and let them use blocks in a theme. But we can do a better job of creating a layout based on a Drupal 7 theme. So that's kind of why I'm thinking about a coder module as being an option where like if we could give people a button that was like make me a layout that would take their page template and convert it into a layout
A
template.
Flexible, like
Yeah.
a flexible layout?
Maybe even a flexible one they could move around. I was thinking just like generate code because that's what coder module does, but a flexible one might be even better because then they could play with it if it wasn't right.
Yeah.
But yeah, and that way we're not like having to add a bunch of code and Backdrop that we're going to throw away later. And we're also giving them like a starting point that's close enough to what they have that they don't need to understand it yet. They can just build first. But yeah, I think like I agree that not only is it work that sort of needs a developer to do it, but it's conceptually very different from how Drupal solved this problem. So even though you have developers who are like, I'm willing to do the work, you hit them with this thing that's like, this is totally different. And they're like,
Yeah.
this is hard, I don't want to do it. And it's not hard, it's
So-
just totally different. So that's
Yeah, it's less work than D8, much less work than D8, but still it's a little bit more work than different. It's something that they need to learn, and
more thinking and less coding, which is I think
exactly.
hard.
Yeah, so I think that we still have time, a lot of time until it's a year and a half almost. So we have plenty of time to automate and improve things when it comes to whatever can be automated, like from import migration paths and stuff like that. But this is the most tricky bit that people have to sort of like manually work on. So whatever we can do to automate that would sort of like lower the barrier for people to migrate.
Yeah.
So I don't know if this is worth sort of like an initiative, because I think that's what initiatives are for, right?
I think
like ongoing.
I talk about this in one of my proposed initiatives, and the make themes and modules, Drupal themes and modules. I forget what it was called, but yeah, no, I propose this.
I also
So
think this might
the ready
in the theme, like make themes easier to use initiative too, because we're here talking about like, okay, I have a Drupal 7 theme and I want it to work on Backdrop, and maybe you don't want to touch any code, right? Maybe you want it to just work. So that could sort of fall under the theme initiative. Or if we could find a way to make it so you could put your Drupal 7 theme on your Backdrop site and it would make itself work, that would be amazing.
It scratches the same itch, but it's a gigantic scope creep. So that's why I wanted to like get the ready to wear thing out of the way, and then actually dive into this next.
Yeah.
So maybe Luke, you want to talk about that ready to wear initiative, which is like it fits. I know it's a bit it touches on the dev meeting, but it's kind of outreach. Like the portion of it that you have less work to do touches on the outreach.
Well, I mean, right? It is that idea. The whole point is reducing barriers to entry to adopting Backdrop for in the ready-to-wear case, everybody, but it also counts for, you know, people coming from Drupal. The example in this case would be, you know, rather than convert your existing Drupal theme, just, you know, ignore your Drupal theme and just throw one of these into place. But yeah, the idea was to have a way to get into Drupal without having, get into Backdrop, sorry, without having to find somebody that knows how to create or modify a Backdrop theme. Like even if that's a relatively small barrier compared to like most other programming tasks, it's a pretty big barrier compared to firing up a website. And, you know, puts a distance between us and things like Squarespace and Wix and WordPress.com that doesn't have to be there. And, you know, allows you to like get to a usable level and then, you know, move on when you're ready.
Yep. So the ready-to-wear initiative, is it Backdrop ready-to-wear or themes ready-to-wear? So, because yeah, I saw the ready-to-wear sort of like a trademark thingy, and then Olaf started mentioning a couple of themes, or this specific theme that he started building, which would be sort of like agnostic to layouts or whatever. It would be ready to use, and I thought that the ready-to-wear initiative was specific to themes. Are you referring to?
It is specific to themes. There was some talk about whether talk from you as to whether it would come with recipes, but as Janice pointed out on those threads, that, you know, the themes that are included as part of that need to work with all the layouts.
Yeah.
But
so really, in my head, the ready to wear would be these themes that are ready to work with Backdrop, right?
Yeah.
And we solve one issue, but then the site owners have to make a decision of dropping their previous theme and going with one of these. So they have to choose one that matches their previous theme as close as possible, so to avoid doing extra work, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I think if you get into the world where they have a previous theme, then we're possibly talking about a different marketing space than I'm.
Yeah.
The market I had in mind for this, the users were people who don't necessarily know what the word theme means or have, you know, any idea what that means. You know, where if you say to them, well, just create your theme, it sounds to them like, well, just, you know, do an open heart surgery like you normally do. It sounds like something that's completely, you know, not possible, and so they just give up. So I want to avoid, but my thought was that we want to avoid people just giving up. Just get them to actually try it and discover the things they can do, and let them do the things they can do right away, and add fancier stuff, more custom stuff, more personal stuff later, once they're no longer, you know, faced with a blank slate and a dead site.
I would still like, if not in core, maybe we could, and I understand that the thing that you said, Jen, about replacing the pipeline, and this is what I was referring to as being too late now to think of this. But if we can do something in contrib, like install this contrib module, and this will help you sort of like translate whatever old themes you had to still keep working with Backdrop, and then eventually when you develop your Backdrop theme, then you can drop that module and the old theme or something like that. Anything that would help people do less work to move to Backdrop. That's when it comes to themes.
That's why I'm leaning towards something like Coder module, is because I think there isn't anything that we can introduce that will just make regions in a theme work. Like regions have to be in a layout. But if Coder module you could push a button and it could generate a config file that would give you a layout, like that, I think is enough that you could run your theme and it could just like rename page template, use new layout, and it wouldn't be perfect. But you could at least have all your stuff where it's supposed to be. There are some other things too, like one of the things that I think makes a Drupal theme distinctive is the header. And the header in Backdrop is its own template file. And so that's something that you would need to like pull out of the page template and drop in there. But even though that's like work and conceptually something different, it's also something Coder module could do. Like it could find a tag with a class header or an ID header or a header tag. And if any of those exist, it could pull out that entire chunk of code and write it into a new file called header template. And it could be like, that's all I can do. I can't do any more than that, but here. And it could be enough that you would have a config template, you would have a new header, and maybe you'd recognize it as your site, even if the CSS didn't perfectly apply to everything.
Yeah, I haven't done any migration, but so when do we take the blocks that have been used? Do we do anything with the blocks in D7? Like, do we migrate them? Do we put them in the main content area? That's what we do.
If you have a layout in Backdrop that has the same region names as your theme in Drupal 7, we will put the blocks in the right place. And even better than that, if you had blocks that had like content type specific settings, like this block only appears on a blog page, we will create a blog template and put the blocks in the right place on the blog layout.
And that's done automatically, right?
Yeah. So
okay,
the
caveat
cool. There is that you have to have those layouts before you run the upgrade. And most people want to run the upgrade first and then see how much work you have. And so if you do that, what you're probably going to be doing is upgrading into Bartik. And in Bartik, we don't know where those themes from your Drupal 7, regions from your Drupal 7 theme, how they match to the ones in Bartik. There is a way you can define like this theme name in Drupal is this region, or this region name in my Drupal theme is this region name in my Backdrop template, and put them together. But it's much easier to just have the same name in Drupal 7 and Backdrop and let it run the upgrade.
That region matching, does it happen in code?
Yeah.
Or do we, yeah.
It's part of update.php where it'll just look for matching names and moves blocks over. Block module, I think it might be block modules update. It might also be in layout module, I don't remember. But there is some function you can define to put that map in, but it is, I think, in a custom module. I don't remember. Nate, you're making a thinking face, so I'm not sure you're paying attention, but quick question. When you run an update from Drupal 7 to Backdrop, where does the matching happen for regions? Is that something you'd put in like settings.php? Or
so the upgrade code is in system.install.
Okay.
Since that's where like the installation of layout module actually happens. And I think that it does an automatic, I'm gonna have to look. It does an automatic mapping if there's a layout that has the same name as the theme or something like that. I don't think it's...
The regions have to match the names in the theme regions. I think so, but I think in
but there's also an option in settings.php to say, when I run the upgrade, map this theme to that layout. So you also can do a manual mapping to associate a theme with the layout. But obviously one of the problems here is that this isn't documented. Like who would know that, you know? It's like,
and the other thing is that it still requires a person with, it's not actual coding because it's a .info file, basically things like region names. It's not PHP per se, is it? Oh no, it is settings PHP. So it's arrays. So anyway, my point was that it would be awesome if there was a user interface that either did that, provided the matching thing during installation or post installation, like get users content migrated, and then at any arbitrarily point in time, you can say, all right, now I want to convert my theme. And the UI would sort of like say, yes, match this to that. But instead of messing with text files or PHP files, it would allow you to do it from the UI some way.
Gregory just said what I was going to say. I was going to reference in Drupal 6, there was a module called Node Import that was never converted to Drupal 7 or much less 8. That because they said use feeds instead. But one of the big differences from my perspective that Node import had that Feeds doesn't was exactly this kind of user interface. Like in Feeds, you have to type in a column name that matches your CSV. Whereas Node import would read the CSV, throw up a list of the columns and throw up a list of the fields and let you say, put this to this, put this to this. I would see a user interface like this that would read your TPL-FIP, list the regions, show you the regions they can go to, and if they're mapping, they're already mapped. And if they're not, let you just drag. Okay, my my head region should go into the header, that kind of thing.
So the page.tpl.php in Drupal 7 is essentially your layout template in Backdrop. So why couldn't we just take the region list and the page.tpl.php and just throw them in a folder and say that's your new layout?
Yeah, we can, but there's a bunch of stuff that won't work in it, like the header block, because they're like, we would create a header region, but only if there was a header, because there wasn't a header region in Drupal. It was all just in the template. So we would need to like add. We might just have to add one. I mean, there's some stuff like that where we could make some assumptions and then see how it worked.
I mean, wouldn't there be a relatively easy manual step, like even if it ended up in a region called header that wasn't in the header, that would get them into a working Backdrop site, and then it's a pretty easy thing to, oh well, I can just drag it from this region into the actual header. Would that be a thing?
We'll have to try it and see, because there's no header region at all in Drupal. And so if we did a conversion, you'd end up with a site with no header. So we would need to be like, okay, I'm just going to assume that if there's no region called header, that I'm going to make one and I'm going to put it here and I'm going to place the header block in it, and then we're going to let them fix it. So I think there's some stuff like that we're just going to have to assume. And then Backdrop, it's like menu is a block in Drupal 7, and menu is like a variable in a template, but we don't pre-process that variable in Backdrop anymore. So there's just some stuff that like we would try it, and every time we run into one of these things, we could add that solution, but we're going to hit a bunch of them. So
and the thing is that even if it ended up like that and we made the assumptions, if the people ended up with a flexible layout, they could tweak it.
Yeah,
because from the user interface, that's what I'm saying. So instead of having nothing or having to go into code to achieve things, at least we make some assumptions and we migrate what we think. Like, it's not going to be perfect, but it's not going to be from scratch. That's all I was saying.
Yeah.
I mean, the worst case scenario is you end up with a white screen of death, and that's no good. And then the second worst is you end up with like lots of data missing. But if we end up with all the data's there, but it's in the wrong place, I think that'll strike a lot of people as a fixable problem.
Yes.
Like, oh, okay, I see that there. I just have to figure out how to move it over there.
Yeah, I also think if we were to make a like custom, what's it called, flexible layout, and we know we lost something, we could set a message and be like, hey, we didn't know where to put your X block. Go to this layout configuration page and place it where you want it. That would also sort of tip them off to be like, okay, well, it knows there's content that's not there, and I have the ability to put it where I want it. For somebody who wasn't familiar with layouts before, that might be a much easier introduction.
Oh yeah,
exactly.
I really like this line of thinking.
So my next point is, does that fit within the ready to wear initiative, or is it a different initiative?
It's different.
It's an upgrade.
It's different. Okay.
It's the make upgrades easier initiative. Which I think we also need.
Yeah.
But one thing at a time. Maybe next cycle, I'll get behind that one. Yeah.
I'm all about avoiding the scope creep.
Yeah.
Yes. Just a few questions. Do we have a hard limit on how many initiatives we have? That's question first. No. And then if a proposal there's a proposal for an initiative, what do we call that? A proposal?
A proposal.
So when it's not been decided if it's an initiative that we will endorse, what do we call it before?
A proposal.
Like a proposal, okay. So, and this is an issue, right?
It's an issue? What do you mean?
Like, like a
Initiative.
GitHub issue.
No, it goes in the
So,
forum.
sorry,
In the forum.
it goes in the
there's a
forum. In the
initiative
forum. Okay.
proposals section, yeah. So that people can
Okay.
have conversations about it.
Yeah. So I'll have to rewatch this recording and make an initiative proposal and a proposal, whatever.
Yeah.
Well, here
But, yeah.
I put the initiatives forum into the chat, and I'll put oh, there it is. Let me put one more in the chat, because it sounds like related to possibly encompassing what you're asking for. The one I just put there, the Drupal compatibility helpers is the title of it, but maybe that doesn't describe what's inside.
Yeah, I liked that one too. I voted for that one.
It's down in, I call it D7 theme adapter.
I love it. I have oh man, there's so many things I want to do. Why aren't there more days in the week?
Stop time.
So I have,
Or,
so last week, I think I might have mentioned that somebody contacted me via my contact form, and they're like, hey, I need to move to Backdrop, but I need this theme. And they handed me this project that was like an install profile and like 8 helper modules and a theme and page builder and all of this stuff. And I'm like, I need to really try and figure out how to do this in Backdrop. I really need like a lot of time to look at it. But man, I would love it if we could take something like that and allow like people to drop it into this theme converter thing, and it would be like, here are your 8 layouts and here's your configuration for your whatever. And like, yeah, oh man, it would be so sweet.
yeah. So if you guys, like, I don't do this professionally, so I would only have test sites if I could get my hands on any. So if there's anything that you guys notice as being repetitive task that could be automated, just make an issue about it. Hey, this is something that I do constantly. Maybe we can put some logic into it and it can be automated. But yeah,
like what kind of thing, like in converting themes or in?
Yes.
Okay. So that's the kind of stuff that I want in Coder module. Like anything that's like I'm writing code, I want Coder module to do it for me. But I also want this thing that Luke's describing that doesn't involve helping you write code, it actually builds stuff in an interface for you. And I think that what we can build in Backdrop is configuration, which is what you recommended, making it a flexible thing. And then, yeah, man, if we could have both.
we could have like a theme importer.
Yes.
So even if someone chooses a D7 theme and they say, oh, this looks cool, but it hasn't been ported or there's nothing equivalent in Backdrop. So besides running this thing during the installer, you could say, check this or analyze this theme and convert to whatever is a close match for Backdrop layouts and blocks or whatever.
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
They could even like fire up a demo site, install the theme they wanted, install the theme converter, convert the theme, pull the theme off, throw it on their custom site, run the update, move all the stuff into the regions, ta-da, done.
Yes, exactly, something like that. And if we document, now that sounded like 5 steps, if we document those things, it's going to be, at least it's better than needing to hire someone. Exactly. Oh, goody. Now the next thing is to win the lottery and work full-time in Backdrop. So yeah.
Sounds nice. Okay, well, we are 1 minute until we have to start the developer meeting. But I love these ideas. Gregory, I look forward to seeing your forum post on the Make Upgrading Easier initiative for the theme converter module or whatever it is we're going to do. I love it all. Is there anyone who wants to add anything else before we wrap up this meeting?
We didn't get a chance to talk much about Mautic, but I would suggest looking at the first video on YouTube on it.
Okay.
Give you some idea of it.
Sounds good. All right, I'm going to go ahead and end this meeting, and we will see everybody again in a